marginalized, bullied, or victimized from a male, I want to tell you that you're not alone. There are many other women who stand beside you, and I'm one. And out of years and years of going through men who have tried to stand over us, or stand in front of us, who have threatened, marginalized, hurt, sexually abused, bullied us through abuse or violence. Out of all of those, I think it's time for us to rise. And it's not just time for us to rise because I'm saying it. It's time for us to rise because it's been long overdue. There's quite a few women's groups out there. My concern is, though, that up to now they seem somewhat separated from each other. So what I mean by that is that if you're going through domestic violence, you'd be going through, one or two phone lines or centres where you'd be dealing with what's going on for you. And none of us want to deal with the kind of shame or feeling like a victim from any of these scenarios. So I understand that I'm not alone in saying this or feeling this. I know that there's many other women who stand beside me in this, that we feel like men will encapsulate it as us playing victim when we say that we need help, or when we say that these things have happened to us, predominantly single women. Married women tend to be a lot more safe because they have a man beside them. They're not necessarily safe from domestic violence, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying safe from other men, other entities coming in and creating havoc in your life. The recipe for that is generally the same. Males who do those sort of things, the predatory males that do, tend to, if they're getting to know you, they'll gaslight you. So they'll come from a place of trust. It's impeccable trust. It's over the top, wowing you and wooing you and being everything that you hear about in movies. That does sometimes come real, but most of the time, unfortunately, it doesn't. It's deceptive. And those men usually have no merit behind them, and they've got no scruples about putting that forward because it's a sales pitch for them to be in a position to do whatever they want, for you to be in a very vulnerable position where when the turnaround happens, you are like the last one to be aware of what's going on. It's like, how did this person go from being a really nice person who couldn't do enough for me to being this person who's making me feel unsafe in my own space? When I've mentioned that to other males, there's a large portion of males who have this feeling of, what did you women do to bring this onto yourselves? Or what were you expecting when a guy's being that nice to you? Obviously he wants something. Or when you are being nice to him, what do you think that's telling him? And for some of us women, it's telling them that you genuinely like them as a person, or that you are feeling safe with them, or that you are complimenting them because you know that they've been hurt before and you feel like there's something nice you can say that will balance it out and help them with their building tools to getting back to being okay in their lives again. I see now that rescue work that I've put in and many other women put in does nothing to serve us, because there's a triangulation that happens with that abuse. There's a cognitive dissonance that happens with that sort of abuse, whether it's sexual abuse or physical abuse or verbal abuse. And that is that it's like you are the greatest thing in the whole world. You should appreciate that I have put you on that pedestal, and now you have diminished that pedestal because you have not complied with the picture that I have in my head of how things should be. And that to me feels like what gaslighting is. It's like when a guy really, really sees you in the space, he's built up this fantasy about what he's going to do with you. You're either going to be his wife or you're going to be his bed partner or something like that. And when it doesn't happen that way that he has preconceived it to happen, then there's hell to pay and you're going to wear it. And whatever he can lash out or do to hurt you, well, so be it. So what is the answer or the solution to that? from a male's point of view, I would like to know, like, what are you wanting us females to do about that? Do we just not act nice back? Do we just dismiss you and get called a snob? Because it feels like we've got to enter into a language that is all in your language. When males do things like that, we don't understand it because our way of communicating with each other is very different. So if I say to a woman, wow, you look gorgeous in that today, and I'm meaning it sincerely from the bottom of my soul, she will take it as what I mean it. Even a lesbian woman would, right? She wouldn't be like, oh, she must really like me, right? So let's go home and whack myself over it. I feel like there is a different story when it comes to a man. And time again, we see things going wrong. And statistically, it is predominantly the women that are ending up as recipients of this. And if we stand up and we assert our boundaries, we're called feminist or man-haters or lesbian, which really isn't it's not a bad title, guys. You might have to leave that one. But, you know, we are diminished for standing up for ourselves. We say, or we're jealous, or we're insecure, or whatever it is. It's a whole lot of demeaning things that all of us women have been called at some point or another. And it's basically just for standing up or creating boundaries around men who don't know what boundaries are or don't believe in them. And it's the same breed of men. But there is some truth to be said about boundaries, that we do need to assert ourselves better. And I'm definitely an example of that. And for that reason, I have chosen for the most part for several years to stay single, because it's too hard. It feels like every time I put those shields down and I allow myself to be vulnerable with a male, even more so in male friendships, I might add, there's really only maybe 3 males I can think of, 2 males at the top of my head, where I actually really genuinely feel safe around them and know that there is no hidden agendas. They're not going to abuse that trust or that privilege of our friendship. And they're not going to contradict that. They're not going to prey upon me. I'm not going to wake up with them trying to climb into bed with me. I'm not going to they're not going to try and take advantage of me, whether it's physically, or financially, or any of that. And I know that I'm not alone in this, because I've heard many other women's stories. And I'm facing a scenario right now where it stands to cost thousands of dollars. In fact, it stands to cost more than that. It stands to cost me everything I have, financially as well as property-wise. And that's based on me rejecting a guy who wanted something more than I could give. And I thought that being honest with him and transparent about the fact that I couldn't go in that direction with him would be enough. I hoped it would. And then I saw everything change overnight, literally overnight, and spiral into something where there was threats involved, innuendos toward violence, and now pretty much blackmail on keeping my belongings and costing me a fortune in other respects. I'm totally stunned. I'm stunned because there's no relationship with this person. There was no promises from my side. He has outright called me a liar about stuff that him and I know is true, like really true. I'm stunned that someone could lie, but I have a problem with that because it doesn't make sense to me, because I always feel like in the end things will get found out. But I'm realizing more and more that some people stand behind a lie. I think he does know that. Anyway, we'll go back to where I was before. I know that I am not the only woman who has faced this sort of drama before, and I'm not interested in any more of this drama. I want closure on this. I want to move on in my life, and I mean, I can't even honestly say I want him to find closure and peace, because I really don't care what he finds at this point. I'm really troubled by the fact that some males are led so strongly by their penis that they have nothing but fury when you don't want to take things further, when you don't want to go in that direction, and they can't accept no for no. Like, they can't accept that you might not want to have a relationship with them. They can't accept that you just don't. I'm totally stunned that that can lead to someone who feels that they have a right to be aggressive and threaten me. And I know that I'm not alone. And the more women I speak with about it, the more this happens, and that really concerns me.